Hello and welcome to the Find Your Flow radio show podcast. I am your host, Winston Wittes, and we are broadcasting live from the Musical Dojo studio here in rainy Southern California with a very special guest. We have the one and only DJIDeaL. Welcome to the show, DJIDeaL. Tomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Winston. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so stoked you were able to make it. I know you just got back from playing Pride out in Arizona. Every time I'm watching you on social media, you're either in Florida doing the Ultra Festival, or you're on stage rocking something somewhere. You're such a busy guy. Catch us up a little bit.
Catch us up. Yes, I did just come back from Phoenix. I got to play on Sunday at this really cool tent that was on a fire truck stage. So
Wow.
they went and converted a fire truck. It's a part of the Burning Man stage.
Sweet.
And it's really cool. It's a really LED'd out fire and all this stuff on this fire truck. That's
Nice.
converted into a stage. It was really fun. Pride was really fun to play at. And then I just came back from Ultra as well, and rocking the Resistance because of our Resistance stage that I was there as a part of. I got to perform with myself and Jaybreak, who was my production and DJ partner. And Ultra and the whole music conference week was probably like one of my most work heavy ones, but also like networking and just being everywhere that you possibly can to try and meet as many of like these like-minded music individuals who make it out from all over the world to try and see what's going on with each other as artists when you meet up with people, or just what's going on in the industry, whether it's at the conference or at the events or at the record label events or at the festival.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. Besides all that month of fun, I've been up to log producing for the last 6 months. I've been able to fully dedicate myself, more so than I ever have since I started working on any music stuff, just on myself, on me as an artist, on me as far as my producing with myself, and as well as my production projects with Jaybreak, as well as a couple other collaborations that I've had, and working on label stuff, working on PR stuff as well, doing some on-camera stuff and blogging for NBC for San Diego.
Yeah.
Which is a very fun project. I never would have thought that I'd have the opportunity to be on TV.
Yeah.
Or to be speaking about electronic music to all of the artists that I've either been following for a long time, playing their stuff for a long time. Some I've actually known from the past, or just being able to give it a platform to allow electronic music to have a little more of a non-biased view.
Yeah.
Because I like all the genres, and so for me to be able to speak to any of one of these artists, I try to speak to them from the heart and talk about things that hopefully relate to what the viewers or the new viewers to electronic music are into or maybe want to know. Because there's such a new, I find that now that the media is giving some attention to dance music, it doesn't always have to just be about the party sense and what goes on post the party.
Yeah.
You can bring them to talk about music,
Right.
And just talk to the artists and see what's going on. So I think it's a cool platform to have.
Dude, that's so cool. And one thing you said was unbiased, or and that's, I think when you said it, it reminded me of back when I started really getting into party was 99-ish, and there was a huge bias, and it wasn't in the media unless it was about the drugs that were happening, or some kid overdosed, or the police had to break it up, and that was such a long time ago. It seems like now, to where it's it's on the news now, and it's not just about those negative things, and you're actually able to, you've seen and you've been in this industry for so long, and doing this for so long, to be able to bring that and present that to the world in that light is really cool.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a culture that is finally just out.
Yeah.
when you're talking about like in the late '90s, the culture was truly underground. It wasn't just the sound that was underground. It was literally underground. Like people didn't really know about it or talk about it the way that it is now.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of had to really want to know about it or want to be about it to be there. And those that did experiment and go on and hang out for a little bit and just ran into those things, a lot of them were just like awakened.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Like,
yep.
You didn't think this type of stuff could happen.
Yeah.
Now, like, festivals are happening, which is awesome. It's a different type of feeling and event and experience, you know. But that's all a part of it. It's supposed to.
Right.
But they're supposed to be the evolution. I mean, technically, present day dance music is the evolution of what was disco.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
disco is an evolution of what came before it. So like, I think it's supposed to happen.
Right.
And if we're able to have now these sort of platforms that allow us to share, you know, to share what we love to do, to share the music, and to share more about the culture, which I think is what is really spreading the love of like dance music, where the culture behind it is you know, I'm gonna be like a clearhead for till I die.
Yeah.
You know, like there's nothing wrong with having peace, love, unity, and respect.
Right.
So if there really is that sort of foundation for a culture, why not?
Yeah.
Let's keep spreading that.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know, like with having the opportunity with like NBC ask me to do that, I take it as an honor, more so because, like I was telling you, it's not unbiased on my end in the sense that they want me to just talk about everything. Like, I actually had to ask them, like, is it okay if I talk about warehouse parties? Because, like, you know, that bias stuff that like some of the medias want to block out.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, talk about it.
So
Let
crazy.
people know.
Yeah.
Like, and to a certain extent, I can't let the locations,
Right,
you know,
right.
but we're talking about the fact that these are happening.
Yeah.
So that still lets us put the word out.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
That's very cool.
Like, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've interviewed some like really cool people too.
Yeah. Yeah. It spiraled into, so like when they asked me to do this, I was also doing a radio show. We were doing a radio show, I think back then as EDM with my buddy Tristan D. We were on Z90. And so when they asked me to do that, I brought on, I believe, the first interview we did with NBC was Infected Mushroom.
Oh wow.
And so Infected Mushroom a couple years ago were having a great tour. They were doing some the live element to Infected Mushroom has always been great, you know. And we did an interview with them, and then after that, since last year, we've done Steve Aoki, we've done Gorgon City. It's just names that I never thought would want to necessarily talk to us.
Right.
But we've shown them that it really is about the music.
Yeah.
We really do just want to talk about what we want to talk about, and they've been super receptive. So thankfully now these names have come along, and we want to keep growing and growing. You know,
Yeah. That's
spreading
huge.
it more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to see you on the news and like interviewing these people. It's like,
I still like
amazing.
you know, I've heard people that are like, I can't see myself, I don't watch my movies,
right.
I don't like to.
Yeah.
Like, even though I have to, like, since I handle a lot of my own self-promotion and marketing and all that, I have to kind of watch them.
Yeah.
I was like, I just have to fast forward. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to hear myself. Like, that's not me. I don't sound like that. That's what I sound like. That's what I look like.
Right. That's what we all get to enjoy that when we're
Yeah.
producing ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's, but I mean, yeah, it's been a little more like self-reflective in the sense the last 6 months and having the sort of opportunities to do these things and refocusing and realigning my life and my schedule and having dropped certain projects and to really focus on this has it's like definitely a new stage in whatever I'm going through in my life, but like a new level of dedication, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had the full experience of truly dedicating myself to just what I wanted to do, and like focus on like my goal of my art and my music and those projects that come with it.
Yeah.
So it's super exciting that I can have these sort of opportunities going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
and that if I'm now in like a mindset of going 150% on these goals, then I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Because one thing I've always admired about you is I've always seen you hustle. Like I remember one time, one little story. Do you remember? It was in I think La Jolla. There was a beach party that turned into like getting. It was a bunch of Brazilian
The
folks.
rooftop party.
The rooftop party. Yeah, yeah. So on the way, I mean that party
broken
was
down on the beach. They broke us up on the beach.
That's
They
right.
found that house with the neighbors.
Yeah,
Random neighbors.
yeah, which ended up being amazing.
Yeah.
And before that, when I was pulling up, I don't remember if we had talked at that point or if I just saw you, but there was some house music coming from like a nearby condo, and you just took off and went over and like met the people, gave them a CD. You know, you were there for a bit, and then you came back over, and you're like, yeah, you know, they listen to house music, they like music, and you know, they've heard of me, and blah blah blah. And I think that's just such a like a key trait in a sense for success is that ability to like how many people would actually go do that? Very few, I would say, right? But the reason I feel, one of the reasons I feel like you have done so much and you're doing so much and doing these things with such cool and high caliber people is because you're willing to take that extra little step, that extra little hustle to go put your CD in somebody's hands. And you know, I think so many people have illusions of like grandeur where they're gonna just fall into, I'm gonna get signed and it's all gonna work out and I don't have to do anything.
Right.
But you've been doing this and you know the realities. And is that how it works? You just get signed and then you can just fuck off or mess up?
Yeah, of course. I got signed for, I guess 18 years ago, and that's why this is all happening.
Right.
No, I mean no. Yes, those things do happen.
Yeah.
There are like those, you know, I think one a year. There's one artist who is kind of selected to be the next. A headliner will have his next guy on his label or somebody that a new signee, and those do happen. But the reality is no. That's nowhere near the reality. It's really cool. I just remember that party because that's a really cool like day. The evolution of that day from like the breaking up of the party by the cops and how we found random people to party on the rooftop. Like parties between like 200, 300 people on that rooftop by the end of the night. And like, I guess the hustle part and the going out for it. That's if I'm saying that present day me is going through my next stage, I would say the stage before that, when I found myself to be able to do things like that, like just go up to people, was post high school. When I started getting more into my music, I guess, when I was like raving and all that, like a sense of like the real me started coming up, and I didn't feel like I had to like be reclusive. Like in high school, I was like typically the kid was just the headphones, walking around by myself, and I was friends with a variety of people, but I didn't really have like a large group of friends. It was more about like 2 or 3 or 4 of my close friends who are still my friends today. But the reclusive, like shy side of me didn't really allow me to connect with others about the things that I loved, because back then raving was not necessarily cool. Electronic music was no, or house music was not necessarily cool.
No, yeah, right.
And then like other like cultural sides of where I grew up, it just didn't allow that to be cool.
Yeah.
And so like getting into like the music side and like really being able to push and promote, I'd say it came from me like hustling from the bottom, like flyering, passing out flyers. That was like my thing. Like I was doing my own parties when I was pre-21 and up, and I was doing my own events when I was 21 up into the scene. From doing my own club parties, doing my own random events, and maybe a restaurant that we turned into a club, or their warehouse that we turned into an event. And it's been cool to see that like that sort of hustle from starting it from the beginning. I was never like a promoter, but most promoters were not promoters. Most promoters just wanted to go out and do an event. Like what have to do that? Book DJs, have to book lighting, have to book sound, or maybe you own it. You produce your own flyers, probably. You probably designed your own flyers, print your own flyers, then you go pass out your own flyers. So it's like when you're doing the whole equation of like what it has to take, you're proud of what you're passing out at that moment.
Right.
And like, you've done all this, and here's my work. Come to my party,
Yeah.
and then have that experience. Like, I think that, like, just going and doing that has in turn turned into these other things that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not like I went to school for graphic design, 3D animation. I'm not a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily trained to be on TV. I was never trained to be on radio, but I've been on 3 different radio stations and 3 different radio shows. But that's just, I think it's because of what you're saying, like, it's just to go for it. You know, like, it's corny to say that there's nothing that's going to stop you but yourself, right? But if I hadn't been passing out those flyers, I wouldn't have met those artists that are now in places where it's cool to be able to work with headliners who weren't headliners 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
But because I went out and tried out to do something with them, we've grown to be friends. Like, like, what else? Like, I feel like the evolution of what, and I say evolution a lot.
I like
I
evolution.
have evolution printed on my shirt.
Yeah.
Like, there's the evolution that's happened with the things I'm going through today came from those things that I did then. And it's really like what you're saying, just like being the outgoing and doing it. But it's really like, I love what I'm talking about.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I love what I'm gonna be saying or speaking or being on the radio or being on TV, or if I get to just share what I love, why not? You're gonna give me the opportunity to do it, like, cool. I mean, thankfully I think now I've done enough things in the past where there's now the history and like the repertoire of whatever I've done that it can validate. But it wasn't because I went to school for it. It wasn't because I was trained to do it. It was just because I wanted to do it. Yeah.
That's such a cool validation of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I'm happy with it. It doesn't mean that I'm making a lot of money on it. It doesn't mean that like I'm gonna like just live off of this. Hopefully I can find a way that I can live off of this forever. But like, there's this really cool thing about just being content and happy with who you are and what you are and doing what you love.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that feel like they have to have so much money first before they can feel that. And there's so many people that look at people who are really rich or who they would imagine they're so happy because they have all these things, but those people sometimes aren't happy because they don't have that other piece of it that's like, how am I really expressing me, or how do I really get to share what I love if I'm too busy working all the time?
Right. Right. And I mean, granted, I probably am working a lot, but part of realigning yourself is, I think, I found is that making time for the non-work stuff too, you know, like the family stuff, like if I can find something that's not music related, maybe there's something else out there that I do that's not music related, you know, that like can enrich yourself and enrich what you do. I can definitely say that I'm addicted to like working, and that's probably why there's a lot of different facets of which I'm involved in, and so I spread myself out in my time. But within at least the dance music realm, there are so many things going on that you can be a part of, and if you build I'm trying to be almost like a resource center in a sense, for things that a lot of people haven't really focused on. And so like, I realized that the media platforms, you know, I got to be a part of radio shows as of 10 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of attention to radio shows back then, at least for electronic.
Yeah.
And so I saw there was a lack there. About 8 years ago or so, I was involved with like Till 8 magazine, and eventually now I'm involved with DJ Mag. It's another form of the media aspect. You know, of the NBC thing, definitely other aspect. I've wanted to be a part of all of them, just because from what I'm like seeing, there's going to be a lot more attention to, even though electronic music has a lot of attention right now, I feel it's going to get even more attention when all of the genres truly grow to be as big as this EDM thing that's going on. And so like I'm trying to position myself in the sense where I can just be a little more ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So in the future, as things, it's almost like playing stocks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I never thought about it, but like right now, I'm like, I'm kind of investing in things right now, so
Yeah.
that my time,
Yeah.
so that when it blossoms.
The most important thing, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like there's a lot of things like that. That's like the market, you know, the people's attention, trends, you know, these kind of things. And like I remember when I moved back down to San Diego, was probably 2000, like starting 2004, and then started doing a residency at Deco's, and like kind of in that area. And that's when L5 was like the hot spot to go for after hours, and you know that whole thing was so fun. But I remember like other than those few clubs and like maybe, you know, here or there, like the underground stuff, there wasn't much EDM in the clubs. It was all like hip hop, and if you were playing at these places, there was no, you know, undoubtedly somebody's going to come up, DJ, can you play something, why don't you play something we can dance to? I'm like, well, what can you dance to?
Yeah.
Hip hop.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all hip hop. Like, nobody wanted to hear it, that
Yeah.
kind of music back then. But it's changed so much, and if you can see where it keeps going, you position yourself there, like you're saying.
Right. Now, you know, granted, nowadays there's so many politics within the different genres, politics within your own city. Sometimes in your own city, sometimes you may not gig as much the more you do, which I think is actually not a bad thing. But the politics of it really also don't. The intercity politics or the industry politics could help you or not help you depending on what you're doing. Depending on, like, there's a lot of like taking sides on promoters, a lot as far as DJs go.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually like had to take a little bit of a break for about a year to kind of like reevaluate how and where everybody's working. Like it's also like they're all industry people. We're all friends, but it's still a lot of relationships based on what you're working, what you're doing.
Right.
And so like as I started seeing that more and more, I really didn't like it because I didn't want people to think or associate me to just one thing just because I'm working with somebody or because I'm working with something. And so I took a break from like DJing quite a bit. I kept a couple of my gigs like with Avalon and a couple of like the festival stuff, but it was like a reset. And so when I did that, I started focusing more on the record label, and I found that was a really cool way for me to be involved and be involved with the new artists, be involved with new DJs, new producers, because thankfully now all DJs kind of have to be producers. I think that's a good thing. But it allowed me to like reset, put myself back into a different arena in a sense. I'd never done label stuff. I've produced and released with others, but I never ran my own or A&Ring. So I'm doing one where I co-own and one where I'm A&Ring. And so it was like, let me do something new, and now I'm going to connect with the city still. But now I'm able to connect with any city, any artist in the world, and I'm getting to share other people's music, grow a network of musicians that I can now in turn share my music with.
Right.
And I'm giving people a platform to release music that maybe they're not being given a chance to. And thankfully we're doing really well with the spread of the labels and like the response that we've been getting. So I mean, I'm super stoked.
That's awesome.
But it's been a trip because if I hadn't done that, I feel like I might have gotten a little like super bummed out or depressed with how the scene actually can be. And I don't know how I might have stopped.
Yeah.
Like during that break that I took, it was a little like because there were so many changes going on within the scene and industry. It's not that it's a bad thing that it's growing, but those changes came from all of that growth. And so the times when you're saying about 10, 15 years ago, the business side of it wasn't necessarily the way that it is now, and so I've had to readapt myself,
Mhm.
and it's cool. I'm glad I did it,
Yeah.
but it was definitely could have been like a risk of me like, here, just stop it.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy because, for one, because like I really love what I do, but at the same time, there's like this compromising thing that I didn't want to do.
Mhm.
Like I didn't want to just completely adapt and change myself or my sound or who I am, or have to be um, expected of doing things just because I'm working with certain people. That like I have to love it, you know.
Yeah.
And if I'm not loving it, then